The truth is, disempowerment is real. And when I'm working with folks who have been through a lot of experiences of disempowerment, it could be because different spaces in our culture, wherever you are, all over the planet Earth, for whatever reason, the body you're in is marginalized by the larger culture. So that kind of disempowerment is real. Financial disempowerment is real, particularly for those who maybe fall into one of those bodies that are marginalized. Disempowerment of women is normal. Most of my women have some sort of issue with this. There's a lot of different reasons. I'm thinking about different ways people are treated, whether it's race or LGBTQ or ableism issues, differently abled bodies. There's a lot of reasons why people would be experiencing disempowerment. And at no time will memory reconsolidation change that truth. The reason memory reconsolidation works is because an old thing was known, and now a new thing that is actually true is known. I'm thinking of a client I was working with who is in a female body, Latina, and lower SES, which means lower socioeconomic status, right? So she worked in nonprofit spaces, and she didn't make as much money as a lot of folks in the culture around her did. And her disempowerment, the ways she was treated differently, the lower money she made, whether or not people would listen to her voice if she used it, all of that was completely real. Memory reconsolidation is not about convincing a brain that something's true that isn't. One of the things that I find most empowering about this work for my people is that memory reconsolidation only updates with what feels subjectively true to that human. And so it's very gentle and client-centered in that way. I want to support you in discovering what shifts work for you in your internal system, not what I think would work for you. Because I come from a different space. Maybe I'm in a different body, and I have different experiences of both empowerment and disempowerment, spaces where maybe I have a different level of privilege. And so my thoughts would be unhelpful and irrelevant to you in your body because we inhabit different spaces. So one of the things that I think is really empowering about memory reconsolidation in terms of helping people in a way that's deeply respectful to the differences between us is I'm not trying to convince you of something. I'm not trying to talk you into anything. What I'm doing is creating a space wherein if your brain knows a different truth, knows a truth that would be helpful to you, you are likely to discover it. When I'm working with folks who are in a situation where empowerment or feeling more empowered would be helpful to them, I have a few things that we might discover. And each one is going to be completely unique for this person. But something that may come up is there may be a knowing of disempowerment that is age-related. So I'm thinking of a client who I've worked with who sometimes she's a woman and she feels sometimes small or young, especially when approached by a man who feels like an authority figure. And so it was true in her life that she was really in disempowered positions younger and got hurt by men in her life at the age of 4. That's true. And sometimes when she had now experiences, real-time today experiences, she would feel little again, like little in her body. So I cannot disconfirm that the people she's running into at the cafe don't want her to be in a power down position. Maybe they do. But what is different is that she's no longer 4. She's actually not in a 4-year-old body. And so maybe the resources of the 37-year-old body maybe are different than the way she could protect herself at the age of 4. And so updating the system about how old she is was really helpful. She felt not that the world got better, but that she had new options. Finding moments of competence, finding moments of embodied, like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this, can be helpful, and especially can help create more rigid boundaries for folks who get messages about lack of competence. And we don't want to take those in because they're just not true. And so we can help a person's system become more alive in their competence by letting moments where that's really, really true compare to moments of self-doubt. And you compare those to, remember our layer cake that we've been talking about? So maybe there are lots and lots of layers of getting messages about incompetence. And there are also layers about moments of competence. And if we just let those layers cake sit on top of each other, the layers will all be there, but they will not change each other. If we take those 2 layers out and compare them, that's when the change could occur, as long as both are embodied. Another thing that I've found really helpful for people, I think that's a weird way to say it. Let me tell you what I mean when I say that. I don't think I'm actually finding it. I think this is like this co-created space that we're creating together, and they're finding it, and I'm listening and learning from their system. So I think a better way to think about this, maybe for me and my body, just in this moment, is, something I've learned a lot from my clients that I've worked with, is increasing a sense of community. So finding sisters, I'm thinking of someone who I've worked with who was talking about being in a Black body and how she was feeling really tentative and nervous when she was entering white spaces. But when she went into Black spaces with other sisters who are in similar bodies, right, that space felt way more supportive. And so letting that support really be present with her. How often does she need to go into those spaces? How much can she celebrate those spaces? Can she build more of them? And what would be stopping her? Well, it turned out there was some worry about, is it weak for me to need those spaces? Oh, when we did a reconsolidation on is it weak for me to need those spaces? Should I be like stronger and be able to enter these other spaces and not feel so scared? When we helped with, is that actually weakness or is it strength to lean into my community? Then it was way easier for her to lean into community more and more and more. Moments of celebration of who a person is. So finding that selfhood and really celebrating those, and then finding moments when that hasn't been celebrated, comparing those 2 layers can be really helpful. Moments of increasing self-worth, because there's so much internalization, right, of these messages. I know walking around in the body of a woman, I've gotten messages all of my life that I should not be talking, that I'm not particularly smart. I'm thinking about a moment actually when a client who was in a really, really hard space looked at me and he said, you know what? I think you are too young and too dumb to be able to help me. And that's a very overt version of a message actually I know I've received as a woman throughout my life, and he just said it out loud. and luckily I'm in a therapist space with him, so we could joke about that and wonder about what he was hoping for in that moment, and actually worked through that really well together. But I'm just thinking about how if I take in those messages to heart, how I can start to believe them. And then we end up internalized, well, maybe I shouldn't be sharing my mind with people, or maybe I shouldn't be raising my voice. Maybe I should defer to what other people are thinking more. So we can do a lot of work with, ooh, what scary thing would happen if we loved ourselves, or ooh, what scary thing would happen if we let those messages we've internalized go. And by the way, it is impossible for the brain to not take in those messages, at least some. The lower part of your brain is taking in literally millions of bits of information per second. And the top part of your brain that has some choice about what we're taking in is much slower. It's taking in somewhere between 6 and 50 bits of information per second. So it's not gonna not make it in. You're gonna have those messages coming at you. So whatever messages your client is hearing, they are making it in. And we can take those layers. That's your layer cake, right? Here's my experience. It's creating a layer cake on my cake. No problem. What we're going to do is we're going to compare that to other messages that are already living in deep truth inside that person. This is one of the things I think that is really important about understanding memory reconsolidation, is that if the brain changes this easy, why isn't it happening all the time? Well, it's really important that you don't forget about gravity and what a chair is, and whether or not water's safe to drink, and who you are and what relationships feel like. It's really important that you don't forget those. So it does take this special comparison in an embodied way to help transform those knowings. And so there are lots of moments where I might be with a client who has really great layers in their cake, and they also have really hard layers in their cake. And they've never compared them before, not these. And I'm creating a space where it's more likely they'll be easily compared. And it's in the comparison moment, the prediction error occurs, the network opens up, takes in the new learning. Another thought I have is to be exploring with our folks what protection actually aligns with the reality you are living in. That's not for me to say, but I want to create a space where I can help them explore in their wisdom. Oh, when is it safe to speak out? When is it not safe to speak out? When is it wise, right, to put up a firm boundary? When is it wise to stay silent and not speak? When is it a moment of resistance to not take something in? When is it not serving you, right? So I want to really explore, there are realities you're facing. What protections do you need? And what resources do we already have internally that might help those protections come into being, so that you can put them into practice in a way that does add protection. And even as we're doing this, I'm in full awareness that absolute protection for lots and lots of bodies in this earth is actually not available. So with that reality and finding moments of empowerment that already exist within, and then comparing them to the old knowings. One of the things you can do is find origin points of the emotional knowings. So usually these will be earlier in life, moments of getting, this is what happens when you're in a power down position, this is how you deal with it. I want to find those. We'll do that through tracking the body. We'll do that through wondering about, oh, when might I have learned this? We'll do that through using our note cards, sending people home with these ideas. Oh, here's a mismatch, here's an emotional knowing, writing it down, right? We'll use all these skills, and we'll be looking for empowerment knowings. And once we find origin points, we can compare the origin point knowing to the empowerment knowing. I feel so grateful to all the folks who do demos and share their really hard work with us. And in this tape, we're going to be watching a woman who works through disempowerment experiences, being female and being an immigrant. And I just want to thank her and thank everyone who is so gracious to share their really hard work so that we can learn.